Hey!
Hey, welcome back. I'm Jason Jarvie with Realty ONE Group. Today we're not talking about stats, we're going to be diving into the DIY world. In my family, I'm the DIY everything guy. From top to bottom of the house, I like to get my hands on it. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working on the pool. We're going to be cleaning the cartridge filters in my Pentair Clean and Clear Plus system. And this is something that normally your pool guy is going to do, and it's going to be an additional charge to the regular maintenance, somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 to 100 bucks. But this is something that is definitely doable by the average person. So come along with me while we get this thing going. To start, you're going to need a couple of tools. First one, not really a tool, but more of a product, is a bit of O-ring lube. A 22 millimeter open and or closed wrench, 22 millimeter socket on a drill or impact driver, and because we're going to be kneeling down on the rocks, some sort of mat, towel, rug, something or other, so you don't destroy your knees. I'm prone to doing that. First thing we got to do though is, because my filter pump is running a cycle, is shut it down. So my system's pretty easy. I have a mode button here and I can put it into service mode. You might have to do it on your pump. You might have a manual timer, but regardless, you're going to want to turn that off and make sure that you're not building any pressure in the cartridge itself. So to start, the canister is going to be full of water. So we're going to need to drain it out before we take loose the center band here. Otherwise, we're going to get soaking wet. And to do that, there is a drain plug here on the front that we're going to use that 22 millimeter for. Twist her out. It helps if you have a ratcheting wrench like this one. And once it's loose enough, get ready. It's gonna splash down on us. Here it comes. And make sure to get any electric tools, like your drill, out of the way of that water coming out. So check it out. Here's a bunch of the palm material from our palm trees and the neighbor's grass that's stuck in the bottom. You can hear this is gurgling quite a bit of air. I did pop open my pump basket so that it'll allow a little bit of airflow, but at this point I'm comfortable pulling the band off of the center here. Be careful touching this top. This is fiberglass, and as it wears in the sun, you can see I put a little cover over the top here for part of the day, but as it wears, it's going to put little tiny glass fibers in your hands and your arms and everywhere that you touch. What I did last time I worked on it was I sanded it down and I gave it a quick coat of spray paint on this top half here so that I got a lot less fiberglass in my arms. So that's just that easy. When you take it off, you're going to have a big washer, your spring, another washer, and then your captive nut. It goes through onto your stud. So your center's band strap here, it might be stuck. You can use a hammer, you can pry on it, you can use the bottom of your drill, which I'm prone to. You pop it off and it's gonna slip out of there. One of the things that I use that O-ring lube for is around this band so that it will fall off and it doesn't stick itself to this fiberglass lid. The next step is going to be pulling the lid itself. And it's not heavy by any means. So I get down underneath and lift up from the top from our pressure port, and then we're going to set this to the side. Inside we have our retainer here at the top. This pops into the 4 filters. You can just give this a little bit of a shake, lift up, and then you'll have this secondary filter here, which I believe is return water. You can pop that off and give that a quick rinse. We're going to rinse this whole assembly off because there's just a little bit of debris in there as we pop these filters out. To get the actual filters out, once we've taken the retainer off of the top, they just come straight up. They are going to be a little heavy because they're full of debris and water. These are pretty clean. I had already cleaned them about 6 weeks ago when I drained and serviced my pool itself. But I've also been dealing with a lot of phosphates in the water, and when you use a lot of phosphate remover, you got to clean your filters because it will gel up in here. Before you service your filters, there are a couple of things you should be doing weekly, if not every couple of days, depending on use. And one of those things is to double check your actual chemical levels in the pool. What I like to do is I like to check everything on hand here with one of my just handheld dropper kits. You can even use the little test strips in the pool. But at least once a week, I go and I get a free sample from my local Leslie's pool store. A lot of pool stores will do a free test of your water, and what they're checking is your free chlorine, total chlorine, pH, alkalinity, hardness, cyanuric acid, iron, copper, phosphates, and total dissolved solids. So double check what your actual chem numbers are before you go and do any other service work, and then you have a good baseline to start. I save these every week. That way I can see the way that my pool fluctuates through the season, and I can help plan on how many chemicals and what I'm going to need to buy along the way. Obviously, I could just buy them when I run out, but I'm a planner and I like to look ahead at what that's gonna look like for my budget. To clean our actual filters, we're gonna be using this special nozzle adapter. You pick it up cheap on Amazon. What it does is it's got the ports here across the front of it that wrap around your filter and get in between the pleats, or you can direct the spray on the end to get more of a concentrated flow. But it does make cleaning the filters a little bit easier. Totally not necessary, but hey, it's kind of fun to have extra tools. So it's as easy as it looks. You just put it right up to the filters. You're only using hose pressure here. And you just drive all the debris down and out. You work your way around. So my filters are going on about 6 years old now, and they're still original, so they're not going to be perfectly white. But there is a bit of a before and after. You know, there's obviously some debris still stuck in here and quite a bit of dirt that's going to get washed out. This one's already clean. Depending on your locale and the type of pool equipment you have, you'll probably have to clean these filters between 2 and 4 times a year. A little bit more if you use the pool a whole bunch and it's super dusty, and a little bit less if you have additional filtering equipment like what I have back there with that Cyclone. You did see that I was using some soap on here. There are specialized soaps for these filters to make sure that you prolong their longevity. I wound up just using a little bit of dish soap to break down any of the skin oils or any of the sunscreen that got permeated into there. And I don't use much. I use it on that little sprayer there to help it filter down and through. And then I make sure that the water runs clear coming out the bottom before I throw them back in the cartridge holder. Before we can move on to putting the cartridges back in, we have to cover a really important topic. And that is, I can't continue on making these videos without your support. Obviously, I have a day job, and that's helping you guys buy and sell homes. So if you are in the Phoenix metro area, reach out. I not only help you buy and sell a home, but I'm going to help you guide along the way with these types of DIY projects. I'll always be a shoulder to lean on and ask questions, and if I don't know, I'm going to connect you with somebody who does. So hit that like, subscribe button, hit the bell notification if you want to keep hearing more from me with other videos. We're going to continue to talk about the Phoenix metro area and the real estate stats specifically going on here. At some point, we'll probably delve into the national economy and so forth, and then these DIY projects. I've got a ton of stuff slated, including an accent wall in the house. So hit that like and subscribe button. Do it for the kids. So for our next step, we're going to need water. So drag your hose over to your filter housing. This isn't going to take a lot of water, but there is a little bit of grass and other particulate debris stuck down here in the bottom. We have our cap or our drain plug out still, so we're just going to rinse the rest of this out. And depending on when you're servicing, you might have an entire pile of sand down in there. I get very little sand in mine because I have this Cyclone separator that catches the sand before it goes into my filter housing. Before you put your drain plug in, double check that the threads are clear, all sand and debris. Otherwise, as you screw this plastic cap into this fiberglass plastic bottom, they're going to get damaged. Now is also a good time to use that O-ring lube here on the bottom. This doesn't have to be super tight. All we're trying to do is put a little bit of pressure on there to keep it from leaking while the system is under pressure. And this will reach somewhere in the neighborhood of up to 20 PSI, depending on your flow rating and how high you have your pump set. And remember, this isn't going to be Armstrong tight. Got to make sure we say that more than once. This only needs to seal. If you really crank that thing on there with all your might, the next time you go to take it out, you're not going to be a happy camper. Now we can get our filters back in, and it's just as easy as we took them out. You set them in on the little retainer rings in here. You don't have to push too hard, so we're going to be clamping them down. Then we'll get our retainer for the top. Don't forget your little central strainer. I already rinsed that off. You can see it's all clean now. It goes in the middle. And then those just clip in the top. Your next point of lubrication would be this O-ring here. Double check that it's not totally filled up with dirt and debris. And then you just throw a little bit of lube on there so that as the unit clamshells onto it, everything will seal up nice and tight. Now we'll get our lid on. Now, even though I did paint that top section, this bottom section here didn't get painted. I didn't have enough. And you can see all the little sparkles. Those are the pieces of fiberglass that are going to go into your skin. So hold it in a gentle way. We're just lining up over top, right down on our O-ring. Now you want to rotate the lid so that when you're releasing pressure, you're not shooting the water at yourself. And ideally, you're not shooting directly onto any electronic components. Even though this is all wet rated for outside, I like to shoot back towards the wall. Then I can see my gauge there. Now we need to get our clamshell on. This part could be a little tricky because it's not by any means heavy, but it is going to want to slip out every time you line it up. Just like that. So you need to line up your T-bolt here and pull it together. And I keep a little bit of lubrication on there, again, to make sure that it's going to go together easily. Then we need our washer, our spring, our washer, and then our large locking nut, captive nut here. We're going to thread that on by hand because if we do it with the tool and cross thread it, we're going to be really unhappy when we have to buy a new clamshell. So then I like to give it a couple good whammies. Make sure that it's seated. Line it up so that you have good access to your bolt. And then for tightening instructions, as you're tightening, you want to tap down on the lid, tap on the spring clamp itself until the spring touches completely. So as it's driving in, give it a couple love taps. Make sure that we're seating everywhere. We've got the canister lid back on. We've got our hose. Our next step is to make sure to prime our pump and make sure the pump basket is full. And I've already cleaned it so that we don't have to worry about that here. You could also fill up your canister with water. You'll have less air to purge that way and less air going through the system. But let's see how this goes. So we're going to kick our pump back on. Whenever we go from service mode back into the running operation, it's going to go into a priming phase. So it's going to kick up to whatever high RPM I have set here. And technically this time of day it's off, so it's not going to kick on. So for me specifically, I'm going to hit high speed, which should be 3,400 RPM on my pump. I hear it thinking. So what we're looking for here is we want to see water coming into our pump basket through our inlet. This might take a moment as it's building suction. But I can hear the water starting to pull up. And you see, as it starts filling, we're going to be filling this cartridge up and we'll see our gauge start to move. Now this is going to be mostly full of air up front, so we're going to need to bleed it off. I'm going to let that build here for another second. There we go. So that's what we're looking for, is for all the air to escape out of the top. Now we know our system is primed and we've gotten the air out. I hope that this was helpful for you to be able to do some of your own maintenance on your pool. Again, we're going to be looking at other maintenance around the house as we go. But now that we've got our filters set, it's time to enjoy the spoils of our rewards.
Woo! Yeah!